Hey, Roshan, how you going?
Good evening, teacher. All is well?
Yeah, all is well.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are just waiting a few minutes for some more attendees to log in. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natasha Bowler from Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, and thank you for joining us on this webinar. Today we have with us Mr. Roshan Basdev and Ms. Laura Rajkumar from JMMB, who will be doing the presentation. We also have Ms. Nicola Vickles from the TTSE and Ms. Tisha Marie Millington Bihari from the TTCD. I will now hand you over to Laura, who will start today's presentation.
Thank you, Nicola. Let me just take a second and share my screen. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar hosted by the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. I am Laura Rajkumar, Investment Analyst at GMMB Investments, Trinidad and Tobago Limited. So before I start today's session, I would like to say by no means any reference made to a stock is a recommendation to buy, hold, or sell. So today's discussion is centered around sector-specific investing. What is sector-specific investing? What do we think about when we hear that term? Essentially, it is investing in one or more sectors of the economy. This can assist investors with diversification opportunities and help mitigate the risk of being overly exposed to any one specific sector. So, for example, if we look at the local energy sector, it has been heavily impacted by climate change and lower commodity prices. So this sector has been one that has been lagging recently. However, in a highly interest rate environment, one that we are in currently, banking sector stocks tend to perform better. Therefore, in this scenario, we can see where sector-specific investing and diversification is important. According to global standards, there are 11 sectors across the equity markets, and these are energy, financials, healthcare, information technology, consumer discretionary, consumer staples, materials, communication services, industrials, utilities, and real estate. I am sure my audience here are familiar with some of the big names like Shell, Schlumberger, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, AstraZeneca, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, just to name a few. However, domestically on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, these sectors are classified a bit differently. So these sectors that we are accustomed to locally are banking, conglomerates, property, manufacturing, trading, non-banking finance, and energy. And just to highlight some of those big names, Republic Financial Holdings Limited, Scotiabank, Trinidad and Tobago, of course, the GMMB Group, Massey, Ansa McCall, GHL, NEL, and TTNGL. So just to delve a little bit into some key points an investor should consider when making investment decisions. So firstly, examining key economic indicators. This takes into account the macroeconomic environment in which businesses operate and include factors like inflation rates, consumer spending, and employment data. So, for example, in an economic downturn, you will notice that the consumer staple sector may outperform the consumer discretionary sector. And in times where there's an economic upturn, the consumer discretionary sector will perform better. Let's use a local example. Let's say Prestige Holdings Limited, where product price range from the lower end products like KFC, Subway, as opposed to Starbucks and TGI, which are the higher priced products. So you would find in an economic downturn, KFC and Subway restaurants may experience increased sales compared to, let's say, TGI. Another key point to consider in the industry is in which companies operate is to understand the industry analysis, in which it can help investors to understand the competitive environment and how well a company stacks up against its competitor. So we use the example with KFC, and we can safely say that this is a highly competitive product as there are numerous chicken and chips options available to us. However, we can say that the KFC has maintained its market position. Thirdly, it is also important to conduct an analysis of the company you would like to invest in. This includes assessing the company's financial health and performance through its income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement, and some key metrics to look out for are your earnings per share, dividend yield, price to earnings ratio. So after conducting these analysis and your company is deemed stable and you've made a sound investment decision, it is important to note that equity markets are highly volatile, and it's only natural to be worried about the impact on your portfolio. So when investing, ensure to take a long-term view, be diversified, take advantage of market volatility, and seek attractive investment opportunities. As it relates to sector-specific investments on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, given the limited pool of locally listed companies, it may be more fruitful to look at company-specific opportunities. We have companies like Angostura and Massey, who has expanded its footprint internationally. Angostura, for example, marketed its bitters globally and has reached 170 markets across Europe, North America, and Latin America. Massey Stores is now in Jacksonville, Florida. Additionally, there are companies like the Ansa McCall Group, Ansa Merchant Bank, Agostini, who has been growing inorganically through mergers and acquisitions. Ansa Merchant Bank, for example, prides itself in being the first digital bank in Trinidad and Tobago, and we know digitization and artificial intelligence is the next big thing. The banking sector continues to provide stable dividends. The conglomerate sector, Massey, the Ansa McCall, continue to expand. The trading sector, which we spoke about, Prestige Holdings, has also been doing a lot to expand locally and regionally. From a company life cycle perspective, most, if not all, the companies listed on the stock exchange can be deemed mature. However, these companies are continuously employing strategies to grow and diversify its revenues, and therefore can be considered great investment opportunities. Thank you. That was my short presentation, and I will now open the floor to any questions.
We invite everyone to submit their questions in the Q&A section of Zoom.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions as yet on my end. How do we participate in foreign markets in Trinidad? So I will ask my colleague Roshan Basde, Manager of Brokerage and Securities Services, to take this question.
So morning all. So this is a pretty common question, I would say, that we normally get. I mean, there are a number of different vehicles that you could choose to get exposure to foreign markets. I think the most common and the most easy one would be in a mutual fund that would probably invest in either the US stock market, so maybe US capital growth funds or income and growth funds that gear towards that are in US dollars participate. So that's one way that you can do that. Outside houses that has relationships with international brokers. JMB itself, has a partnership with Interactive Brokers that where we provide market access as well. I'm seeing there's another question here, Laura, where I think this one might be for you. How does one work out the intrinsic value of a stock?
Yes. So how does one work out the intrinsic value of a stock? So we can employ relative valuation techniques. In my presentation, I spoke about the PE ratio. So the use of the PE ratio as well as their price to book ratio are two relative valuation techniques. And we can also look at the dividend discount model. So most companies on the local stock exchange do pay a dividend. So in analyzing the dividend discount, or the DDM model, we would look at the historical dividends paid, and this is discounted because of time value of money. So we obtain the assume a growth rate, a long-term, short-term growth rate. The 10-year, in most instances, we use a 10-year treasury yield and the beta of a stock, and this gives us the cost of equity. And this is used in this is input in the dividend model. So through these types of analysis, along with our fundamental analysis. So what I just described was more or less our technical analysis. The technicals would go into the intrinsic value, and the fundamentals assessing, as we discussed, the economic indicators, the industry in which the company operates, and the financials provides the foundation and the fundamentals in establishing growth rates. And these are the inputs that are used in deriving the intrinsic value of a company. There is another question.
No, I think, okay. Yeah, well, yeah, there was. But just on that same point, as just to kind of build on what you were saying about the economic indicators and how to tie that back into the sector specific investing. You know, the stock market is usually a good barometer of how the economy performs, right? And as well as you would have given a couple of different classifications based on international standards. And we kind of tied it back to our situation here in Trinidad and Tobago. The thing about, you know, you're taking a different approach to these things. What they allow really for is the diversification of your portfolio. And I mean, to the extent where you are involved in portfolio construction and creation, it's usually tied to a goal or an objective that you're trying to achieve over time, right? So over time, these sectors, some perform better than others, and navigating that does require you to be mindful of the stocks that are in your portfolio and the sectors that they are attached to. Because what you will find is when specific economic situations happen, there are natural reactions to companies that are impacted by these situations that you yourself could try and navigate. So let's just say, okay, banks perform better in times of higher interest rates. So you could naturally gear toward your portfolio towards maybe the banking sector, or if your objective is cash flow, you look for stocks that pay a higher dividend yield. So stocks maybe in the trading sector or in the energy sector does carry some higher yields. But again, it's very important to understand what your investment objective is, because those guide your decisions at the end of the day.
I do have a few other questions from some of our other platforms where it's being hosted live. How does one use the index to calculate the market return, both capital gains and dividends, as is seen on Yahoo Finance?
You want to take that one, Laura?
Mm-hmm. Sure. Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question again? It was a pretty long question.
Sure. How does one use the index to calculate the market return, both capital gains and dividends, as is seen on Yahoo Finance?
Okay. So in calculating your capital returns, essentially we look at the capital appreciation of a stock. So for example, if we have a stock, if you purchase a stock, for example, $5, and it goes up to $10, you know you have made a capital appreciation there. So, and we use the indices to look at how well your stock is performing within the sector. So for example, you have banking stocks, for example, you can tell, okay, this where the TT All Index, the TT Composite Index, where it stands in relation to how that stock performs to the market. In terms of dividends, So the company issues dividends. They put out statements how much the company is willing to pay in dividends. So we use that to look at our dividend yield or trailing dividend yield. And this is essentially the dividends over a period of 12 months. And we estimate this dividing your dividends over the last 12 months by the current price of the stock. Roche, I don't know if I forgot anything, if you want to mention anything.
No, I think you covered it pretty well there. As I said, the indices are a benchmark to test the performance of the security in the specific sector, right? And then, of course, when you look at your dividend yield, right, that's either based on your trailing dividend yield, which is your last 4 quarters of payments.
Payments, yes.
Right. Another question we have, would there be any portfolio manager on the online trading platform where one can track the performance of their portfolio?
So I think they're referring to Top here, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I'm not sure if you want to take that one, Nicole.
I'll take that one. So in relation to what Top provides, Top allows you to track the historical performance of each security on the equity markets and mutual fund markets as available for trading. So you can see the historical pricing, the volumes that were traded. You can see information in terms of the bid-ask spread, the market depth that's available. Top allows you to see your portfolio of assets in terms of all the assets you own with different brokerage firms, but currently there isn't a specific tool that manages the performance of the specific assets within your portfolio over the period of time.
We do have another question. Can we have functionality where it is easier to get the financials for the companies so that it is more expedient for retail investors to do fundamental analysis?
I think, well, currently the stock exchange website, there is the newsroom, and within the newsroom, all the financials are posted.
Yeah, that's correct, Laura. In our newsroom, we do have, and it's very organized. We do have all the financial information, the quarterly financials, as well as the audited and annual reports for the companies that are listed on the exchange. So you can simply navigate towards our newsroom, use the filters that are available. You are able to download the reports. If you wish, we do have a distribution list, so you can feel free to subscribe to that. It's free. You get the information directly to your email as it's put out.
Nicola, I would like to add to that. Within the newsroom segment, there's also the corporate action tab, which indicates the dividends, the history of the dividend payments for the company that will help you as an investor.
Another question, does JMMB provide intrinsic value calculations to its customers as part of their investment advice?
We do provide intrinsic value calculations. You can subscribe as well to our research mail, and you will be receiving updates, weekly updates, market overview, topic, the high yielding dividends, as well as reports within 5 days of being released to the public, which gives the target, the intrinsic value, as well as the fair value range. So yes, we do.
Another question, how does the TTSE decide to change the sector classification of the listed securities?
I will ask someone from the TTSE to maybe address this.
Sorry, Natasha, could you repeat the question?
How does the TTSE decide to change the sector classification of the listed securities?
So I don't think we've changed the classification for any of the securities that were listed on the exchange, but it's generally at the point of listing, the business sector that the security primarily, or the company is primarily involved in, would determine the sector that it falls within.
And the last question that we have, is it safe to use external online platforms to invest in foreign markets?
So to the extent where you get into any relationship with any provider, it's very important to do your research and your background checks as to the, I would say, the operations conducted by these particular institutions, right? I mean, online is meant to be convenient. It's meant to provide access, right? There are a number of different providers that provide execution-only services via an online portal, right? And execution meaning that you are just able to enter your orders and execute. In terms of the other services, in terms of your portfolio monitoring and so on, and being able to move funds in and out of the platform seamlessly would be some of the big important aspects of it I would look at if I'm doing research on deciding which one is the best one. But typically, I mean, all of the major institutional US banks have some sort of online platform that they do offer to their clients. And then, of course, like I said, there's Interactive Brokers, which is the world's largest online broker by volume and value of trades executed. And this is one that's not connected to any particular banking institution, maybe like a JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or Bank of America per se. But again, it would be prudent to align yourself with a platform that is recognized and is usual and is connected to some large institution where you can get redress and not just look at the convenience factor of being able to execute cheaply and so on, because the entire robust framework of cybersecurity and protecting the investors' information, that will factor in as well, of course, into how you make your decision in choosing which broker might be the best one, given the fact that you don't have a physical presence and you're not walking into an office to say you're meeting these persons face to face. This is business being conducted over the internet, and you need to do your homework to determine which one would be the best in terms of having that additional levels of security to protect your information, and more importantly, to protect your funds.
We do have one more question. How do you subscribe? Is it only for JMMB clients with respect to the JMMB reports?
No, it is not only for JMMB clients. The reports are also available on our website under Company Insights, and they are also publicly posted on LinkedIn.
And that brings us to the end of today's webinar session. We would like to thank JMMB for hosting the session with us, and thank you for everyone for attending. Goodbye.
You're welcome.